Okay, today we're going to give you a little taste of the Kolbrin Bible. It's been in my bookshelf for about 15 years. I figured it was time to brush off the dust and give you a little taste. The Kolbrin Bible is a big book. It's a combination of 11 separate books or texts. There is the Book of Creation, the Book of Gleanings, the Book of Scrolls, the Book of Sons of Fire, the Book of Manuscripts, the Book of Morals and Precepts, Book of Origins, Book of the Silver Bow, Book of Lucius, Book of Wisdom, and the Britain Book. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you a brief introduction, and then I will start at the Book of Creation. I will give you a little taste. Like I said, it's a large book. If it interests you, leave a comment in the section below, and I'll see what I can do, but this is just an overall taste of the text itself. You can find the book in PDF or HTML anywhere on the internet. Just do a search. So this is starting with a dedication. This work is dedicated to the men and women who serve their God by activating the good resident in their hearts, to the promotion of the ideal of true love and the consolation and families through the fostering of family ethics and traditional moral values, to the furtherance of all things conducive to the betterment of individuals and the advancement of humankind, to the enhancement of the spirit of goodwill inherent in the human race, and the preservation of all the qualities from the past which continue to serve the cause of good. To this end, the sincere efforts of the publishers and distributors and all profits for this book are dedicated. Introduction. The Kolbrin in its present production incorporates a body of enlightened teachings which are the treasures of the centuries, a light on the path of truth, and as applicable to the world today as they were in the past. There has, however, been a considerable amount of reconstruction, as the original writing survived only precariously. Most of what is presented here was actually salvaged from a pile of discarded manuscripts and was partially burned and damaged by the weather before being reconstructed into a manuscript from which it is rewritten. Undoubtedly, additional material has been incorporated with good intent to fill gaps and elaborate on the original. Something may have been lost in the modernization of various parts. The important part, however, is that this is not intended to be a historical record, an intellectual work, or a literary effort. It falls short of these and is rather a coherent and consistent body of spiritual teachings. It is on this aspect alone that it stands or falls. The spiritual truth presented here are all that matters. The rest can be regarded as an embellishment or a vehicle for presentation and conveyance. The message conveyed, whatever its form of presentation, is always the essential core, and ethically, morally, and spiritually, Kolbrin concedes nothing to other works of a like nature. It should be seen as an inspirational work, the substance of which can be accepted with confidence and trust. While great care was exercised in the past to ensure that these transcriptions would be transmitted through the centuries in a form of unadulterated and unaltered as possible, little is known about the actual persons or body of people concerned. From what is known, the name Kolbrin was originally applied to a collection of manuscripts which were salvaged from Glastonbury Abbey at the time of its burning. The fire, which was arson, was intended to destroy these manuscripts, but they were secretly housed otherwise than in a scriptorium and library at the time of the fire. In any event, it was believed that these heretical works were destroyed, and as it happened, the fire proved to be a good cover for their preservation. Some of the manuscripts were transcribed at some time onto thin metal plates, and collectively these were known as the Bronze Book of Britain. This designation was carried forward when they were written out in book stitch from in the 17th century. The subject matter was then divided into chapters, and the paragraphs were numbered. The whole was modernized in the latter part of the 19th or early part of the 20th century. Incorporated in the modern Kolbrin are new manuscripts which are traditionally claimed to have been copied from salvaged manuscripts, which were not transcribed onto metal plates and formed a work known as the Cole Book, C-O-E-L book. During the second and third decades of this century, these books were in the possession of a religious group in England, which was never very powerful, because requirements for membership were too restrictive. It would seem that throughout history the Kolbrin has always been on the brink of extinction, yet it has survived, safeguarded by a few who barely knew what it was all about, who were neither intellectual nor wealthy, and for whom the practicalities of life took precedence. Originally there were 21 books, which were said to be 12 books of Britain, 8 books of Egypt, and 1 of the Trojans. but of their names there is little certainty. Only a portion of these books remains, and it seems that much of the historical nature has been trimmed away. It is known at the beginning of the 14th century there was a settled community in Scotland under the leadership of one John Culdee. The old Culdeans, who were guardians of what they called the treasures of Britain, were never numerous and loosely organized, membership being maintained by itinerant smiths and other craftsmen. They seem to have previously been loosely known as Cofirls. The Kolbrin makes mention of wise strangers, and there is a tradition to the effect that these were the original Culdeans, or Kalades. There are other explanations, but the writer is in no position to express any positive or worthwhile opinion, and does it really matter anyway? We are told that the ferrule master, a word of uncertain meaning, was Nathaniel Smith, martyred in the beginning of the 17th century. This appears to mark the end of the old Chaldeans as a coherent body, but steps were taken to preserve the Kolbrin. For a long time it was buried or otherwise hidden, but sometime during the early part of last century, copies were written out in biblical English, and 2 of the books were in existence just before the First World War. Since then, the various books of the Kolbrin have suffered many vicissitudes, and what remains is only part of the original. During the last World War, the old books were then thrown out as worthless junk, saved and again discarded as heathen works of the devil, but luckily again salvaged before irreparable damage was done. It has not been easy to reconstitute them, even with the assistance of a more knowledgeable co-worker who filled in the few gaps with compatible reference to modern works. No doubt, in its present form, the Kolbrin leaves much to be desired. The contents could perhaps have been condensed and much irrelevant matter deleted, but the compiler considered it his prime duty to preserve and retain every possible fragment, and leave it to others better qualified to sift, revise, and condense. Obviously, some of the proper names are spelled wrongly, and some of the original correct ones may have been replaced by others, for it seems that in the past there was a biased selection of material to be included. No claim is made regarding historical accuracy, but the compiler is totally unqualified to voice any opinion in this respect. But as stated before, this is not a historical work, but the corpus of a doctrine and way of life. Originally, the Kolbrin was in 2 parts, the open book and the closed book, the latter being more properly called the Great Book of Eternity, the former being the Great Book of Life. What is presented here is the open book. Actually, this book contains nothing not already known, for mankind has never been without guidance. Truth and wisdom can be no one's monopoly, therefore many things expressed therein are to be found elsewhere. Superficially, the Kolbrin may appear to be just a jumbled collection of maxims and old stories, some incomplete, but to judge it from this standpoint is like analyzing the pigments of a paint in a painting, and counting and classifying the brush marks to discover what an artist wants to convey. To understand it fully, one must stand off and view it as a whole. Even then, comprehension must flow from the heart and mind, and not from the eyes. A society progresses through social evolution, not revolution, but the woes displayed by present-day society indicate that the evolutionary trend has taken a wrong direction. The standards of the past, formulated to stabilize society, has been spurned, without any adequate substitute being put in their place, and that is a tragedy of the times. To get a more comprehensive view of where our society is heading, perhaps a better understanding of where we have been is needed. It is in this context that the Kolbrin is launched to take its place in the greater scheme of things. A salutation or prologue to the Bronze Book. Greetings, unborn ones, now asleep in the dark womb of the future. Greetings from we who were once as you are now, and like whom you will one day be. We too hoped and feared, doubted and believed. Were you choosing a gift from the past to the future, what would it be? The golden treasures hoarded by kings, the bright jewels beloved by queens? Is worldly wealth still so important to you? If that would be your choice above all else, we are disappointed, for our labors have been in vain. Would you prefer the secret of life, of eternal youth? Have you altered so little from those who live and laugh today, with no thought turned towards the future? This thing which seems so desirable, were it yours, would you value it? Would it never pall? Would you still be grateful for it after 1,000 years have passed? The answer would be yes, if this life were all, the beginning and end, completed in itself. But might not this life be no more than a prelude, an introduction to something infinitely greater? Is the riddle still unsolved, the secret of the ages still well kept, known only by a few, even when these words are read? How many generations have passed without progress? Does mankind still lie passive like driftwood on a sea of spiritual apathy, driven back and forth by changeable winds and conflicting currents, making no headway? Could we leave you the knowledge enabling you to live a life without toil, surrounded by every luxury and pleasure, a magic stone granting every desire, an all-healing potion, the ability to fly or know all things on earth? Would any of these satisfy the desire of your heart and fulfill your dreams? We, who lie so far back along the road, trust you have progressed beyond such petty aspirations. It is beyond our power to give such gifts, and were they ours to bestow, we would withhold them. For unless a gift confers a benefit, it were better not given. With the wisdom of our generation, tell us which of the things mentioned would really benefit you or even prove less bad than good. Or do you still remain unaware of your true nature and needs? Who you are, how you speak and dress, how you even like us in form, we cannot know or imagine. This alone we know is truth. You are brother beings of ours and travel the road we once trod. We share one destiny and have the same true goal, though perhaps no more know your day than these that are done in yours. Like to us, life comes to you unbidden. It is fraught with problems and difficulties. It alternates between light and shade, and like us, you wonder what awaits at the end. You too are victim of earth's delusion. You too find truth and perfection beyond your grasp, and you too aspire to beauty and goodness. These things we know about you. These things must be, or you would not exist. Your needs are no different from ours, but do you know with certainty what they are? Your life serves the same purpose. You are part of the same pattern. You are ruled by the same impulse and urges, but do you know why and to what end? We know you are without certainty and assurance about what lies beyond the veil of death, for these cannot be given while man remains no more than man. And doubtless, like us, you remain suspended between doubt and belief. Our unborn friends, whatever your circumstance of life, are the children of the past and heirs of those who have lived and died. We trust you have no cause to reproach those who once held stewardship over your estate. But whatever you think of the heritage, you cannot put it aside, any more than you can refuse the obligations of life. Maybe it brings you the happiness and security, the peace and plenty we never knew. If so, this will remain unread. For you it would be a wilderness of words serving no purpose. If you have so much, if you have progressed so far, nothing we could give would be a benefit. To the traveler, information about the road behind is worthless. If this is your state, we hail you. We are proud of you. Our worthy children of light, conceived in the long dark years wherein we labored and plowed our own short furrow. You have done well, and our greatest joy would be to stand beside you as you exultingly reach out for the crowning glory of godhood. But you may be more enlightened than we, in which case accept our offering as a token of our regret, our desire to make amends on behalf of those who preceded you. For if you remain lost in spiritual darkness, the blame is theirs and not ours. This we give you, the hidden books containing the accumulated harvest of wisdom and truth garnered over the generations, the bread and oil which sustained us and never diminished. May they serve us in your days as well as they served us. Above all, may you be sufficiently enlightened to receive them. For today we are persecuted because of our books, and most who treasured and guarded them are now dead. We can only consign these books to the ground in destiny, trusting they will be called forth at the proper time and in a receptive generation. These books, which we hand in the keeping of time, were written under the authority of revelation and inspiration. Containing truth, their messages cannot be attacked by time, for truth is an eternal youth. We make no claim to exact and accurate statements beyond the possibility of error and misinterpretation, for words are frail messengers. They are fallible things unable to transmit accurately from mind to mind. Also, we cannot tell how who resurrected the books will deal with the contents. They are written in letters known to the learned, but learning changes with the generations. These books are the glorious embodiment of eternal truth, but the words and expressions are unworthy garments, so that misconception and misunderstanding are not possible. Words are servants of the fallible mortal sphere, and when called upon to serve a realm of greater things, prove inadequate. Therefore be not like petty-minded ones of our generation who say, the letters are misplaced and the words ill-used. They examine each blade of grass diligently, but fail to discover the purpose of the meadow. Such men lack insight and seeing only the bare letters say, These tell me all, there is nothing more. We have a saying, do not judge a place of instruction by its bricks. Wisdom being eternal, doubtless this will apply no less in your generation. So unborn, unknowable ones, we humbly tender this, the gift of the past with which we not pass on otherwise. If you advance far along the road towards greatness, it will have no value. But if you still dally or have wandered away, lost in the elusive mist of worldliness, and none answers your cry, then take this hand extending out of the past. It will guide you faithfully and well. Down through the generations men have been persecuted, have suffered and died, so that truth and goodness might prevail. Remember them. If the world is good, then your peace and pleasures have been brought by their sacrifice. If it is not, then you must not quibble over the cost of yourselves in making it good. Surely no torment and terror in your days could exceed those of the past. Farewell, unborn ones, with these words we have reached from the day of the present into the night of the future. We have planted the seed. Will it grow or rot in the ground? What crop will it produce? We cannot know. Let fate deal with it as well. We have gathered the seed, flailed and windowed it, and kept it with every care. We have planted well. We can do no more. May life deal better with you than with us. May you never be denied the comforting hand of hope. Farewell. The Kolbrin Bible, Book 1, Book of Creation. Chapter 1. Creation. Mortal knowledge is circumscribed by mortal ignorance, and mortal comprehension is circumscribed by spiritual reality. It is unwise for mortal man to attempt the understanding of that which is beyond his conception, for there lies the road to disbelief and madness. Yet man is man, and ever fated to reach out beyond himself, striving to attain things which always just elude his grasp. So in his frustration he replaces the dimly seen, incomprehensible, with things within his understanding. If these things but poorly reflect reality, then is not the reflection of reality, distorted through it may be, of greater value than no reflection at all. There are no true beginnings on earth, for here all is effect, the ultimate cause being elsewhere. For who among men can say which came first, the seed or the plant? Yet in truth it is neither. For something neither seed nor plant preceded both, and that thing was also preceded from something else. Always there are ancestors back to the beginning, and back beyond that there is only God. This, then, is how these things were told in the great book of the sons of fire. Before the beginning there was only one consciousness, that of the Eternal One whose nature cannot be expressed in words. It was the one soul spirit, the self-generator which cannot diminish, the unknown, unknowable, one brooding, solitary, and profound, pregnant silence. The name which is uttered cannot be that of this great being, who, remaining nameless, is the beginning and the end, beyond time, beyond the reach of mortals, and we, in our simplicity, call it God. He who preceded all existed alone in this strange abode of uncreated light, which remains ever unextinguishable, and no understandable eye can ever behold it. The pulsating draught of the eternal life-light in his keeping were not yet loosed. He knew himself alone. He was uncontrasted, unable to manifest in nothingness, for all within his being was unexpressed potential. The great circles of eternity were not to be spun out, to be thrown forth as the endless ages of existence and substance. They were to begin with God and return to him completed in infinite variety and expression. Earth was not yet in existence. There were no winds with the sky above them. High mountains were not raised, nor was the great river in its place. All was formless, without movement, calm, silent, void, and dark. No name had been named, and no destinies foreshadowed. Eternal rest is intolerable, and unmanifested potential is frustration. Into the solitude of timelessness came divine loneliness, and from this arose a desire to create, that he might know and express himself, and this generated the love of God. He took thought and brought within himself the universal womb of creation, containing the everlasting essence of slumbering spirit. The essence was quickened by a ripple from the mind of God, and a creative thought was projected. This generated power which produced light, and has formed a substance like unto a mist of invisible dust. It divided into two forms of energy, though being impregnated with the Spirit of God, and quickening the chaos of the void within the universal womb, became spun out into whirlpools of substance. From this activity, as sparks from a fire, came an infinite variety of spirit minds, each having creative powers within itself. The activating word was spoken. Its echoes vibrate still, and it was a stirring movement which caused instability. A command was given, and this became the everlasting law. Henceforth, activity was controlled in a harmonious rhythm, and the initial inertia was overcome. The law divided the materializing chaos from God and then established the boundaries of the eternal spheres. Time no longer slept on the bosom of God, for now there was change, where before all had been unchanging, and change is time. Now within the universal womb was heat, substance, and life, and encompassing was the Word, which is the law. The command was given, let the smallest of things form the greatest, and that which lives but a flash form everlastingness. Thus the universe came into being as a condensation of God's thought, and as it did so, it obscured him from all enclosed within a solidifying creation. Henceforth God was hidden, for he was always remained dimly reflected in his creation. He became veiled from all that came forth from him. Creation does not explain itself. Under the law it cannot do so. Its secrets have to be unraveled by the created. All things are by nature finite. They have a beginning, a middle, and an end. An unaccomplished purpose would be eternal frustration, and therefore, the universe being created purposefully, it must have an objective. If it ended without anything else, then the God existing must slumber indifferent to its activities, but he has made it a living work of greatness operating under the changeless law. The creating word had been spoken. Now there was another command, and the power going forth smote the sun so its face was lit. And it shone with a great radiance, pouring warmth and light upon its sister earth. Henceforth she would live within the projection of her brother's household, rejoicing in his benevolence and strength. The waters upon the bosom of the earth were gathered together, and dry land appeared. When the covering of earth was rolled back, the body of earth was unstable, damp, and yielding. The face of the sun shone down kindly upon his sister, and the dry land of her body became very hard. Humidity and dampness were taken away. He gave her a garment of fleece and a veil of fine linen, that she might clothe her body with modesty. From the great womb had sprung the spirit of life, and it was rampant in the heavens. It gazed upon earth and saw her fairness, was filled with desire, and came out of the heavenly space to possess her. It came not peacefully as a lover, but tempestuously as a ravager. Its breath howled along her corridors and raged among her mountain-tops, but it did not discover the dwelling place of her spirit. She had withdrawn. A woman withdraws before force, for modesty must not be outraged in submission. Yet she desired its embrace, for among all the radiant company she was honored. The sun saw her perplexity, and he wrestled with the spirit of life and overcame it. When it was subdued and the primal struggle had ceased, it was delivered by the sun to his sister. It was chastened and quieted in the silent brooding over earth's water. She was stirred in response. Mud eggs of life potential were formed in swamps at the meeting place of land and two waters. The sun gave quickening heat, and life crawled forth upon the bosom of the earth. The land dust brought forth the male, and the dark water missed the female, and they united and multiplied. The first brought forth the second, and the two produced the third. Earth was no longer virgin, and the spirit of life grew old and departed. Earth was left garbed in the matron's mantle of green. Herbage covered the face of the land. The waters brought forth fishes and creatures which move about and twisted themselves and wriggle in the waters, the serpents and the beasts of terrible aspect, which were of yore, and reptiles which creep and crawl. There were tall walking things, and dragons in hideous form clothed with terror, whose great bones may still be seen. Then came forth from the womb of the earth all the beasts of the field and forest, all the creatures of creation having blood in their bodies, and it was complete. Beasts roamed the dry land, and fishes swam in the seas. There were birds in the skies, and worms within the soil. There were great land masses and high mountains, wide barren places, and heaving waters. Fertile greenness covered the land, and abundant life swarmed in the seas, for now earth throbbed with the energy of life. Metals lay hidden in her rocks, and precious stones within the soil. Gold and silver were scattered and secreted. There were copper for tools and forests of timber. There were swamps of reeds and stones for every purpose. Everything was prepared, everything was ready. and now earth awaited the coming of man. Chapter 2. The Birth of Man. The love of God penetrated the third veil and became the seed of souls within the soul sea. The body of man, God made of water and things of the earth, breathing into him the spirit of life that he might live. But man, when younger, lived only to eat and to drink and to fornicate, for becoming conscious only of the earth, he knew only earthly things and earthly ways. Now the Spirit of God moved over the face of the earth, but was not of the earth. It held all things and was in all things, but on earth could not be apart from anything. Without substance it was awake, but entering substance it slept. Consider that which was told by the servants of Eben, of Heaven-man, who once wandered the earth. He had no earthly substance and could not grasp its fruit, for he had no hands. He could not drink its water, for he had no mouth, nor could he feel the cool winds upon his skin. They tell how the ape-tried Selach, led by Heaven-man, perished by flames before the valley of Lod, only one she-ape reaching the cave heights above. When Heaven-man was reborn of the she-ape in the cavern of woe, could he taste the fruits of the earth and drink of her waters and feel the coolness of her winds? Did he not find life good? Is it not all a tale of the courtyard? Man, created from earthly substance alone, could not know things not of earth, nor could spirit alone subdue him. Had man not been created, who would have known God's wisdom and power? As the Spirit fills the body of man, so does God fill his creation. Therefore it was that God saw something had to be which joined earth and spirit and was both. In his wisdom, and by the creative impulse which governs the earth, he prepared a body for man, for the body of man is wholly of earth. Behold, the great day came when the Spirit, which is God, was joined with the beast, which is earth. Then earth writhed in the labor of travail. Her mountains rocked back and forth, and her seas heaved up and down. Earth groaned in her lands and shrieked in her winds. She cried in the rivers and wept in her storm. So man was born above evil and strife. He came wretchedly and tumultuously, the offspring of a distraught earth. All was in discord. Snow fell in the hot wasteland. Ice covered the fertile plains. The forest became seas. Where once it was hot, now it was cold, and where no rain had ever fallen, now there were floods. So man came forth, man the child of calamity, man the inheritor of a creative struggle, man the battleground of extremes. Earth nurtured man with cautious affection, weaning him in the recesses of her body. Then when he was grown sufficiently to be lifted, so he walked in the uprightness of God, she took him and raised him above all other creatures. She led him even into the presence of God, and she laid him on his great altar. A man imperfect of earthly limitations, a thing unfinished, ungainly, and unlearned. But proudly was he presented to earth's creator. Not her firstborn was man, the son of earth, the grandchild of God, man, the heir of tribulation and the pupil of affliction. God saw man the offering of earth to her Lord, unconscious on the high altar, a sacrifice to him and a dedication to the spirit of fate. Then from out of the unfathomable heights and from behind the impenetrable veil, God came down above the altar, and he breathed into man the breath of eternal life. Into a sleeping body God implanted a fragment of himself, the seed of a soul and the spark of divinity. And man the mortal became man the heir of God and the inheritor of immortality. Henceforth he would have dominion over God's earthly estate, but he also had to unravel the circles of eternity, and his destiny was to be an everlasting seeking and striving. Man slept, but God opened the great eye within him, and man saw a vision of unsurpassed glory. He heard the voice of God saying, O man, in your hand is now placed the tablet of your inheritance, and my seal is upon it. Know that all you desire within your heart may be yours, but first it is necessary that you be taught its value. Behold, the earth is filled with things of usefulness. They are prepared to your hand for a purpose. But the task is upon you to seek them out and learn their use. This is the tuition for the management of your inheritance. What you know to be good, seek for it, and it shall be found. You may plumb the seas and pluck the stars. You may live in everlasting glory and savor eternal delights. Above and below and all about there is nothing beyond your reach. All, with one exception, is yours to attain. Then God laid his hand upon man, saying, Now you are even as I. except you sleep there enclosed in matter in the kingdom of illusion, while I dwell here in the freedom of reality and truth. It is not for me to come down to you, but for you to reach out to me. Our unborn friends, whatever your circumstance of life, you are the children of the past and heirs of those who have lived and died. We trust you have no cause to reproach those who once held stewardship over your estate. But whatever you think of the heritage, you cannot put it aside, any more than you can refuse the man then saw a vision of glory encompassing even the spheres of splendor. Unbounded wisdom filled his heart, and he beheld beauty and perfection. The ultimate of truth and justice were unveiled before him. He became one with the profound peace of eternity, and knew the joys of unceasing gladness. The eternal age of time unrolled as a scroll before his eyes, and he saw written therein all that was to become and occur. The great vaults of heaven were opened upon unto him, and he saw the everlasting fires and unconsumable powers that strove therein. He felt within himself the stirring of inexpressible love, and unlimited designs of grandeur filled his thoughts. His spirit ranged unhampered through all the spheres of existence. He was then even as God himself, and he knew the secret of the 7 spheres within 3 spheres. Then God lifted his hand from man, and man was alone. The great vision departed, and he awoke. Only a dim and elusive recollection, no more than the shadows of a dream, remained. But deep within the sleeping soul there was a spark of remembrance, and it regenerated within man a restless longing for he knew not what. Henceforth man was destined to wander discontent, seeking something he felt he knew, but could not see, something which continuously eluded him, perpetually goaded him, and forever tantalized him. Deep within himself, man knew something greater than himself was always with him and part of him, spurring him on to greater deeds, greater thoughts, greater aspirations. It was something out beyond himself, scarcely realized and never found, something which told him that the radiance seen on the horizon but dimly reflected the hidden glory beyond it. Man awoke, the revelation and vision gone. Only the grim reality of earth's untamed vastness surrounded him. But when he arose and stepped down under the bosom of his mother earth, he was undaunted by the great powers that beset him, or by the magnitude of the task ahead. Within his heart he knew destiny lay beyond the squalor of his environment. He stepped out nobly, gladly accepting the challenge. He was now a new man. He was different. He looked above and saw glory in the heavens. He saw beauty upon him, and he knew goodness in things not of the earth. The vision of eternal values arose before his inner eye. His spirit was responding to its environment. Man was now man, truly man. The nature of man on earth was formed after the nature of things in heaven, and man had all things contained as potential within himself, except divine life. But he was as yet an untrained, undisciplined child, still nurtured simply upon the comforting bosom of earth. Man grew in stature, but earth was not indulgent, for she disciplined him firmly. She was ever strict and unyielding, chastening him often with blasts of displeasure. It was indeed the upbringing of one destined for greatness. He was made to suffer cold, that he might learn to clothe himself. Sent into the barren places that his limbs should be strengthened, and into the forest that his eyes should become keen and his heart strong. He was perplexed with difficult problems and set the task of unraveling the illusions of nature. He was beset with hardships of every description. He was tested with frustrations and tempted with allurements. Never did earth relax the vigilance of her supervision. The child was raised sternly, for he needed the fortitude, courage, and cunning of a man to fit him for the task ahead. He grew wily and wiry in his hunt. He became adaptable, able to cope with any untoward happening. Overcoming the bewilderment of early days, he found explanations for the perplexity of his surrounding. Yet the struggle for knowledge, the need for adaptation, and the effort to survive were never relaxed. The earth child was well trained and disciplined. He was never unduly mollycoddled. He cried for bread, and when hungry he shivered and was cast out. He was sick and driven into the forest. Weary, he was lashed with storms. Thirsty, he found the waters dried. When weak, his burden was increased. And in the midst of rejoicing, he struck down with sorrow. In moments of weakness, he cried, "Enough!" and doubted his destiny, but always something fortified and encouraged him. The earthling never fortified his godlikeness. For man was man. He was not cowed, nor his spirit broken. A wise God knew his limitations. As it is written in the wisdom of men, over-chastisement is as bad as no chastisement at all. But man was rarely chastised. He was tried, tested, and challenged. He was led, prodded, and urged. Yet nothing was done unnecessarily. The seeming imperfections of earth, the hazards and inequalities of life, the cruelty, harshness, and apparent indifference to suffering and affliction are not what they seem, as it is. Earth is perfect for its purpose. It is ignorance of that purpose which makes it appear imperfect. Where is there a wiser father than the Spirit of God, or a better mother than earth? What man as now he owes to these, may he learn to be duly grateful. Above all, let him never forget the lessons learned in his upbringing. End of chapter 2.